Oh, they think you're starting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll get us started. Welcome, everybody. Did everybody have fun at the trivia competition? Yes? Was it fun? Adam Marshall's awesome, isn't he? And congratulations to the three people who won. Nate Jones, are you in here? Okay, yeah. Jason Barron, right over here. And Bobby Talebian, who's sitting right there. You are FOIA magician wizards. Actually, he created FOIA Wizard. Check it out. And then also, if you didn't win that competition, you're going to get a chance to win this session's competition. Because what we're going to do is talk about big ideas for improving freedom of information at the local level, federal, global levels. So that's what we want to do today. And we're going to have amazing people, talking about this, prompting our ideas. And then each of you can come down and or up to the mics here, and you're going to have up to 60 seconds. 30 seconds is preferable. We'll cut you off at 60 to give your one concise solution for improving freedom of information. I'll write it down in an Excel spreadsheet, and then when we've collected a good amount, everybody gets to vote. I'll have a QR code, and you can vote on your favorite idea. And then the top 3 vote getters win t-shirts. So that's what we're going to do. And then the panel will continue the discussion, take a look at what you all came up with, and maybe we can walk away with some solutions and some hope. And that's what this is all about. Then we go to break and more breakout sessions. All right? Everybody good with how that's going to work? I think it's going to be a lot of fun. All right. So first, starting off, though, Mago Torres here will be our moderator for this session. And she can introduce the 3 speakers as we go. They're also in the schedule. The bios are all in the schedule. And Mago is a board member for MuckRock, and she's an investigative journalist and done a lot of work all around the world. So thank you, Mago, for doing this, and take it away.
And I take the microphone, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you. We're going to try to keep it. The first part is going to be short. Hopefully, it's short and sweet and inspiring. Also because we just came from lunch, so we need to keep the energy up. I'm Mago Torres, and I'm very excited to be sharing this space with Nick, Bobby, and Toby. Let me tell you who they are. Nick Santos is MuckRock Operations and Support Specialist. He assists with customer support. If you are familiar with MuckRock, if you have used the system of MuckRock, you may have crossed paths with Nick and giving all the support that people asking for public records need. He started working in the government and transparency since 2020 first as a FOIA officer for the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and then at the United States Coast Guard, where he could manage a team of several FOIA analysts specializing in FOIA processing. Then we have Bobby. Bobby, if you see the bio, has a very long bio. But what I'm going to say is that he is a former director of the Office of Information Policy of the U.S. Department of Justice from February 2020 to March 2025. If there's any information that I'm missing that you want to add about yourselves, and with that vast experience in creating guidance and freedom of information. I'm going to shorten because we have very short time, if that's okay. And finally, we have Toby McIntosh, who is the editor of Eye on Global Transparency, writing about transparency at International Institutes. He's senior advisor at the Global Investigative Journalism Network. If you're not familiar with that organization, it's an amazing source of information for investigative journalists around the world. I didn't tell Toby, but I have known about his work for a very long time. I first started doing journalism in Mexico, where I'm originally from, and was like one of the vast collections of understanding all the different ways in which you can request the public records around the world, and has been key in many work. So that's it. We are gonna do this very first round before starting with the crowdsourcing part. But I will ask. And the other thing that is very exciting about this panel, Nick has a lot of experience at the local level with FOIA, Bobby at the national level, and Toby at international level. So we're going to have like a worldwide perspective in this approach. And I would like to start asking you, share with you, that you can share, what is your vision of the future of FOIA, but also the name of this panel is Big Ideas. And I wonder if you can add to each part, to your answers, why, if this is a time for big ideas, why do we need them? And I think hopefully getting some inspiration for everyone that will share their own ideas. Nick, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Nick Santos. Good to meet everybody. When it comes to me right now, especially moving on into the MuckRock space, what I've kind of realized is that when it comes to the state level, there's a lot of differences than the federal level, and you kind of realize that there's so many things at the state level that just make you want to tear your hair out, even relative to the federal level, which is frustrating in and of itself. For as many issues that the federal FOIA has, the states kind of, because of the fact that they're so fragmented in terms of their policies, and they have overlap, but they also have very meaningful differences. It makes it so that for every one state you get familiar with, you kind of also at the same time kind of unfamiliarize yourself with the practice of FOIA requesting with another state. And I think that right now, just as an example of really big ideas, I'm currently going to be the coordinator for the Transparency Alliance project between MuckRock and the National Freedom of Information Coalition. And what we're actually going to do to be able to facilitate helping people understand the state level and bringing some clarity to the gaps between the states. We're actually going to create a FOIA library and a few different tools of records retention schedules, and a lot of records retention schedules, litigation, frequently asked questions to the NFOIC chapter members, and put them in one repository that people can access online. That way, veteran requesters and also first-time requesters at least have some semblance of understanding and where to work with at the beginning, right? And right now, I feel that kind of community building exercise is probably the most important aspect of working within the FOIA. And the several FOIAs in this current moment. I just recently was at the Yale Access and Accountability Conference in 2025 in the fall. And the one thing that I kind of took away from there, that's the most important thing, is really when the several interest groups related to FOIA do not talk to each other, that is precisely the moment when transparency goes to die, right? So I think the big idea here that I'm going to have is going to be focusing on community building outside of our own community members. Obviously, all of us and everyone in this room agree, with the values of transparency and reforms are required, right? But I think that we also need to get other people into the conversation and really start reaching out to folks that are not normally sort of considered stakeholders in the FOIA, because given the broad scope of the FOIA and transparency in government, that I feel there's a lot of room to be made for convincing a lot of people that their government should be transparent and accountable to them. And I feel there's all kinds of avenues to be able to make that apparent to all kinds of interest groups and not just people in this room. And yeah, that's my part.
Yeah, do you want to add if not, it's fine. Okay. If not, it's fine. It's perfect. But why is a time for thinking of these alternatives and these ideas?
I think it's the time to think of these alternatives now, because we have to keep in mind that the current pushes towards fascist authoritarianism are really genuinely we have to reckon with the fact that those authoritarian I'm going to speak frankly. I really genuinely think that we're seeing a moment right now where we take for granted the existence of the FOIA, right? It's a law, it's enumerated as a law, but it can definitely go away, right? I mean, a really good example is IENA in Mexico, right? The fact that it was abolished and the fact that one day you had a real mechanism for transparency within governance just completely go away, right? That is, I think, not just a thing that can happen in Mexico. That's a thing that can happen here, and the very very fact that that is a material condition there that can sort of like breach containment and come here is something that we need to discuss and be frank about, right? And that's why I feel like it's important now.
Thank you. Bobby?
All right. Well, thank you. It's really a pleasure, an honor to be here with so many new and familiar faces dedicated to government transparency. So I'm just really excited to be here. I think I'll start off with why it's a time for big ideas. We don't have the numbers yet, but we know last year the agencies received over 1 million requests, and backlogs still high. I'm willing to bet my mortgage that when the numbers do come out, they're not going to be better. Based off of what happened over the past year to agencies and FOIA. And I think what's really great about our democracy is the checks and balances that have been built in to keep governors accountable. And arguably or not arguably, a lot of those are failing these days. And the one mechanism for accountability that citizens have direct access to is FOIA. So I think now is important for us to think of ideas where we lift FOIA up so that it can be a tool that's meant to serve its full purpose. So when I'm thinking about big ideas, I kind of think about a couple or a few buckets of areas where I think are in major need of change, support, or big ideas that will have the most impact in making FOIA serve its primary purpose effectively. First, for me, it's always been the people. I've enjoyed working with requesters and agency colleagues. And I think, unfortunately, what happened over this past year, a lot of FOIA professionals and FOIA leaders in the government exited, and with them left a lot of gaps and lack of institutional knowledge that can be really invaluable. I think that is something that needs a big idea for us to replenish what has been lost, and also to make FOIA profession an attractive profession where we're getting talent to be able to fully serve the purpose of the law. I can tell you one of the most difficult parts of my job over the years was attracting talent and retaining good people, and we were very successful at it, but it was not easy. And I fear that what's transpired over this past years makes it even more difficult. So that's one area, that's one bucket I would focus on. The other is we've always been trying to, but even more so now than ever, we need to modernize FOIA. We need to take advantage of the technology that's out there to help both keep up with the demand and the capacity. 1 million requests represents billions of pages of records. In multifaceted searches, and so it is very challenging. And there are tools out there that are being developed every day that would help both in the production, the review, production, and the nuts and bolts of FOIA, but also on the other end, the customer service. David mentioned that we built the FOIA Wizard, which I was very proud of. That was our first dabbling of using machine learning and AI to help requesters find information that's already out there. Like, that needs to continue at a very much higher level. And tied to that, proactive disclosures, I think that is always an area that helps both sides. And then finally, none of this happens without resources, funding. So I think, I was really excited both to sit in the transparency tools session, but also to see that there's a session on FOIA funding, because I think that is something that needs to be thought of differently. I think we can't let agencies starve the FOIA in a way where we're not having any chance of reaching its full potential. And I agree that we shouldn't just give agencies money; they should be accountable for it. But often, the way that FOIA is funded across the government is contradicting, and a lot of agencies don't have the resources to begin with. And so those are the areas I would focus on.
Thank you. And Toby?
I'm going to try to give you a quick world tour in 3 minutes. First of all, the pace of adoption of FOIA laws internationally is definitely slowing. There are 142 countries with access laws. That's about 3/4 of all UN nations. And only 11 new laws have passed in the past 3 years. So the pace is definitely slowing down. The next laws to pass will probably be in Malaysia and the Philippines. The financial support for passage of new laws by philanthropies and development agencies has definitely slipped. Gilbert Sandugwa, the executive director of the African Freedom of Information Coalition, told me, "We work with our bare hands. It's very difficult to pass new laws. In some countries, amendments to laws and restrictive court opinions are making it much more difficult to use the laws that exist." Aruna Roy, the Indian activist who was largely responsible for passing their law, said in a recent interview, "We've seen a trend where RTI has gradually been weakened both in letter and spirit." There are concerns about backtracking elsewhere. You mentioned Mexico. Basically the same thing happened in Tunisia. There are concerns about countries including Brazil, Bulgaria, Argentina, just to start the alphabet. In a little bit better news, in Australia, there was a negative bill that was introduced by the government that was just withdrawn, largely because of very strong opposition to it. Implementation, which is one of two parts related to FOIA in the Sustainable Development Goals, is poor in many, many countries. The UNESCO, or not UNESCO, well, a contractor for UNESCO did a survey using test questions, and in 38% of the countries, there was no reply at all to the test questions. So it gives you a bit of a flavor for some of the difficulties that exist. External financial support for implementation from philanthropies, development agencies, and multilateral institutions has declined substantially, which limits things like possibilities of increasing technology and even simpler things like online request capabilities. To be more positive, around the world you see good attendance at trainings for FOIA, and even when laws are bad, if you try to follow some of the stories that have been developed from FOIA requests, and there are great stories that have been developed by using the FOIA laws worldwide. So I guess, although it's a little mundane, I would say there's a huge resource problem internationally, not just for the passage of new laws, but also for the implementation of laws which are particularly being threatened by authoritarian shifts. I guess the other piece of that is just to mention the idea that to think about using international solidarity as a way to help countries which also have FOIA laws and also have many of the same problems.
Fantastic. Okay, so we are going to stop this part here.
Well, we heard the challenges and we heard some ideas of what we need to do, and now we will have a discussion. And this is where you can come down to a mic, and if you've thought of a good idea to improve transparency at the state, federal, global level, all levels, this is your time to pitch it. And so what you want to do, form a line, and you have 30 to 60 seconds. And Serafina here will be the timer. She'll have her little cell phone thing going, right? A cell phone, it's a big one, actually. Yeah. And when it goes off, then you got to stop and let the next person go. Sam here, Samantha Sonny's her last name, by the way, really, coordinates the secrecy tracker for us, and she's going to be the MC. And so she's going to keep things moving. When we're done, I'll show a QR code. You can pick your best, and the top 3 will get T-shirts. All right? So everybody understand what we're going to do? Let's do this. We'll do this about 20 minutes, get as many ideas as we can, and then we'll shift back to the panel to discuss all this stuff. Okay, take it away, Sam.
Okay, so just to repeat what Dave said, we'd love to hear any and all ideas you guys have, so please don't be shy. It doesn't even have to be a super well thought out idea or something you think people won't agree with. We just want to hear from you guys, like what do you think could possibly work? So to get as many as we can, if you do have an idea, please go ahead and make your way. We can line up on the stairs at either one of these mics here. That way we can move fast. And you will have 60 seconds. Oh, yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
If I go,
Gotta use the mic though.
oh, I don't have it.
Yeah, there's one next door.
If I have an idea and we're in the line and then I go back and then I think more ideas, can I present a second idea? Fantastic, thank you.
That's a good question. We've done this before. You have to wait and let everybody else get their idea first. If nobody else is coming up and we have time, you can come up and pitch a second one. So that's how that's gonna work. Alex. Because Alex has a bajillion ideas.
But can you do it in 60 seconds?
Yeah, he can't do it in 6 7. We're going to cut you off, Alex. I love you, bro, but you know. Okay.
Okay, Alex, you want to go first?
Don't bro me, man. So Bobby's here, so I have to ask about the release to one, release to all FOIA policy. You know, in all seriousness, note, this is the idea. Every single time a government at any level releases FOIA records, it should be online in an open and distributable format. Every time anyone obtains records under the FOIA, whether you're a journalist, activist, advocate, or a business, you should put that online, and you should make it very clear in your story or your work where it came from so people understand, and so the public records are in the public domain. Don't let them be behind paywalls. Don't let them be stuck in PDFs or in mailed burned discs or in awful scanned mailed records. Release to one, release to all, online. Public means online. If you put it online, it should be an open format. Did I fit it in? Thanks.
Yeah.
Good to go. Thank you, Alex. Yeah, go ahead.
Just to add to that, every state's law should be amended to do that. But
And can you briefly introduce yourself
I'm
so we
Bob
can write your
Becker
name
from
down?
DC Open Government Coalition. But my bigger idea is to take something that Connecticut already has, which its statute requires that transparency be built into information technology that the government requires. So the mechanics of getting the information out to the public should be part of the systems when they're bought by government agencies.
All right. Thank you, Bob. When you come up to the mic, please briefly give us your name and where you're at so we can keep track of who's going to win the T-shirts. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Kirsten Mitchell, and I'm here today representing the DC Open Government Coalition. And my idea is that I understand from Dave's research that there are 16 states that do not have open government coalitions. I would love to see some grant money or something spent on developing a toolkit so that those states can have coalitions to advocate for public access.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, we'll go up there.
Will Freeze, the Watershed Observer. I think there should be a requirement tied to budget that at least 1% of your funding should be tied to transparency programs. This would take places like my hometown of Salisbury, Maryland, which has an $86 million budget and gives maybe a quarter of a person to transparency programs. This would give them $800,000 to it. So, yeah.
Awesome. And I'm going to kind of just go in a circle here, so I do see you all. Do you want to go next?
I'm Sarah Kotler. I'm currently a FOIA consultant, but used to be a federal FOIA officer. And I would like to see at the federal level, all employees have a FOIA element mandatory in their performance management review. Not just, I don't mean for the FOIA staff, I mean for all staff and management in terms of complying with FOIA, whether as people who have to, in program offices to provide records and upper management as well. And it would be free. This costs nothing to do.
All right, over here.
Ethan Watson, City of Albuquerque. I'd like to see a lot of more infrastructure and investment in records management. On the back end, our systems are just like, across our states, are just really fractured and need a lot of improvement. And there's not a lot of money for scanning records either. So like finding money to scan stuff other than law enforcement records is very hard.
Okay, top right.
Hi, Elliot Wilczek at the MITRE Corporation. To follow up on what Bobby was saying, invest in the skills and capacity of FOIA staff, and maybe use a review of the 0306 job profile of FOIA officers and privacy officers as a vehicle to think through what skills do FOIA folks need moving forward.
All right, you, sir.
Burl Breckner, Breckner Center, University of Florida. We've had wonderful ideas coming through and wonderful sessions about trying to get more information out of the offices, agencies, and so forth. But what I haven't heard here is as much work or effort at just making the public stuff public without going through FOIA. Get a lot of the stuff out of the work stream that we're going upstream against. And particularly, I think at the state and local levels, there's things that are just routinely made FOIA, and they shouldn't be. It's just simple public information. And these states and local governments just make you work to get them, and it should be public to begin with. Get rid of all that stuff out of the system, and we'd have a lot more access to information that needs to be FOIA, really needs it.
At the timer?
Yeah, that was the timer. I don't know.
I didn't hear
All right.
I know, it was too quiet.
it.
Okay, how about top left up here?
All right, thanks. Katie Anthony with American Oversight. I would like to see all government systems, federal, state, local, or just federal, state maybe, have an independent enforcement agency that has some teeth to it. So OGIS, give them some enforcement power, give them some teeth. We see that in some states. We saw it in Mexico until that system was abolished, but give them some actual power and teeth to their enforcement abilities.
And at the end, we will be voting on who you think had the best idea. So as you're going through here, keep in mind we'll eventually start scrolling. So try to keep at the top of your mind like who you thought had the best when we get to voting. Okay, you sir up there.
Hello, Freddie Martinez. I would like to see, I guess, amendments or changes to local or federal law that governments can't claim trade secret exemptions for anything that they use private contractors for.
What was that again, Freddie?
They can't claim trade secrets
Oh,
for
secrets, yeah.
contractor-based work.
Gotcha, thanks.
All right, you sir.
Jason Barron, University of Maryland. I'd like to see chatbots in every state and federal agency used, and with DOJ through Wizard, so that any member of the public, not just skewed towards those who know about FOIA and as described yesterday, anybody can just have a dialogue, like a Gen AI dialogue through the chatbot, try to clarify and narrow their request, ask their request, clarify their request. The agent, the AI, would know something about past requests and maybe give out information that is already available in e-reading rooms or otherwise. But we can make the process much more seamless and much easier for everyone if you're having a dialogue, and it's so much easier than trying to get a person to answer every FOIA request in an agency.
Cool. Okay, up here.
Hi, Krista Westerberg from the Wisconsin Freedom of Information Council. Krista with a CH. And taking these big ideas literally, in Wisconsin, the legislature is subject to the open records law, and it's pretty great, although they are not subject to retention requirements, which is not so great. But imagine how Congress could be different if it were subject to FOIA. And relatedly, one annoyance of mine is how often our elected officials and executives they don't provide records, but they also don't answer questions. And this is freedom of information, not just records. So taking information literally, how about some sort of Q&A that public officials must participate in? If they're not going to give records, then talk to us.
That's a great idea.
Okay, up there.
Hi, Zahava Robbins from the Energy and Policy Institute.
What was that name again?
Zahava, Zehava.
Okay.
Close enough.
Yeah. Sorry.
I recently have been seeing a lot of state and also federal agencies try to just deny requests as overbroad or not sufficiently specific or any variation of that. And I think that there should be a legal obligation for agencies to work with requesters to at least attempt to narrow requests to get them to be within whatever they're saying it needs to be before just outright denying it, because that just wastes everybody's time. And I think that they're doing it as a means of just not even having to search. So.
Awesome. Okay.
Nate Jones. Start a campaign to amend the federal FOIA to get rid of the deliberative process privilege.
All right. Next, we're going to have one of our speakers. Mago, you want to go ahead and go now?
Hi, I'm Mago Torres. My idea is I would love to see, for investigative journalists, I'm thinking investigative journalists, but having shared cross-border repositories of like a FOIA reading room or FOIA logs, and I think it could be like a very interesting asset, source of information to have like international transparency and accountability. Like we're looking at different countries are experiencing the same people and things like that.
All right, cool. Up there.
Yeah, Alex Walters. I'm here from Michigan State. I think every state should have like small claims court or like traffic court for FOIA. You don't need a lawyer. You go, you say, what you think. The responding agency says what they think, and then a judge looks at the records and makes a decision. And it's kind of in between like an administrative appeal where the responder is also the arbiter of the dispute, and like a very lengthy lawsuit where there's a lot of resources from everybody involved. Sort of like an easier thing, and maybe you still retain the right to sue after.
All right, top right.
Hi, I'm Margaret Cuoca. I came in 4th in trivia, so I'm aiming for my t-shirt again. National Transparency Platform. Mexico had one. It acts as a internally developed and maintained government site where you can submit a FOIA request to any agency, where you can find all affirmatively released records that agencies post, so sort of a national library. And also where agencies on the back end can use it to track, respond, refer internally or externally to other agencies' requests that have records in other places, and where you can log in and see all of your requests in one place and all of the deadlines that apply. Potentially maybe appeal to that body that someone else suggested. Thanks.
Okay, you next.
So this is not my idea. I'm Amy Sanders from Penn State. I don't have any clever ideas, but this is Richard Varn's idea. So Richard, I don't know if you're in here. We've been talking about making the public more aware of FOIA, and so like a uniform visual identifier for all journalism that is based on public records that could go with every single story, every piece of coverage to tell the public this was based on public records. Give Richard credit for that. That's not my idea.
All right, so we're coming up on 20. Are we doing okay on time?
We can have a couple more.
Okay, we'll do a couple more up there.
Gloria Rybinski. I think it should be a requirement as part of the onboarding process of every public employee, a portion that educates them in FOIA and public records, so that way, right from the beginning, they have an idea of how to handle requests.
What was your name again?
Gloria Rybinski.
Gloria? Okay, thank you, Gloria.
Okay, next, you want to go up there as well?
Hi, Erin Coyle, Arizona State University. We need greater understanding and appreciation of FOI and government transparency, and one way to do that is to standardize a civics requirement for all sixth graders to have to learn about FOI and transparency, and to have a standardized assignment that they must share with a member of another generation.
Cool. Okay, you down here?
Hi, I'm Ben Kramer from Penn State. I have an idea to convince the judiciary to rein in acceptance of and use of the FOIA exemptions. In 1976, in Air Force v. Rose, the Supreme Court said, "These limited exceptions do not obscure the basic policy that disclosure, not secrecy, is the dominant objective of FOIA." Go back to that.
Say that again, Ben. Sorry.
Air Force v. Rose, 1976.
Yeah.
Precedent on how to make limited use of the exemptions. Sorry.
Okay.
Exemptions.
Okay. I think we have the list. For time,
Okay.
we're going to have to cut it off. This
Sorry,
is amazing,
guys. Thank
and we still have more. The good thing is when you vote, I have an open text box where you can put in more ideas that we didn't collect. So everybody can still submit. I'm going to put a file together with all these ideas and what you write in, and I'm going to share it with you all at probably tomorrow or tonight. I'll send an email out. I'll put it on the website. So while I am putting together the little QR thing real quick, I'm going to turn it back to the panel real quick to talk a little bit, and then we'll come back, and then you'll vote, and we'll go from there.
Okay, we are back before the vote. This is a little bit stressing. There's one idea that I want to take from all the conversation, like what you presented at the beginning of the session, and I wanted to connect it with some of the ideas that have been shared right now, and it is about what has been your idea, or what is just like what you are seeing can be done in connection with communities. I think that part of understanding, it goes from, we see it in countries that are going backwards. Mexico is an example like that, at the government, like what it takes to find the talent, find the talent, and even those positions being limited now, specifically in the US, and creating an alliance, because when we work together, we can have more influence. And I would like if you can add a reflection on that, of the importance of connecting with communities, and if there's like any ways that you have maybe that have been successful, and that the people supports and enforces the existence of access to public records. If anyone wants to start, yeah.
I can start. I think one of the ideas I really liked kind of ties into this, and I think it goes to education, more education on FOIA and its purpose. I love it at 6th grade. I love it in high school. And then, a prime grounds for recruiting is the colleges. But, most kids, they get to that age, unless, their parents are into it or they're journalists, like they don't know about the FOIA. So it's hard to build that strong network of people being interested in doing that as a living or even using it. We also did, when we built the FOIA Wizard, we really wanted to make it a tool for everybody, but mostly for people who weren't familiar with the FOIA. And so we took some effort to reach out and educate people that didn't know about the FOIA enough to then get their feedback, because I think by serving those communities, they'll start using it for learning about their government and themselves.
Okay.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that one thing that when it comes to community is that a lot of culture, especially American culture, is kind of built out from younger age groups, but then it sort of goes upward. I think our colloquialism's changing all the time to be a little bit younger with the advent of the internet, TikTok, whatever, is a big proof of that. And I think that one of the easiest ways to get that started is for anyone who has a child, right? It becomes a community issue the moment when your child comes up and you ask them, hey, what do you have for homework? And they say, hey, I have a FOIA request. And then suddenly it's literally a dinner table issue, right? And not only that, but I think that, the stakes aren't extremely high either. I mean, when it comes to, children, like in the 6th grade, I think, beginning by like just, a teacher or something, like showing them, hey, here are a couple of examples of public records requests that have already been, released. Just send them in. Look at this like list of them. Are any of interesting to you? Do you want any of them? And, let them go at it, right?
Yeah, totally. I was just thinking, if my fourth grader kids were here during that trivia contest, the first thing they would do is go and FOIA request all the feedback for the cafeterias, because that's hilarious. They would be into it.
Yeah.
Bobby, what impact did the wizard have? Because it's gone now. FOIA.gov.wizard doesn't resolve anymore. What did we lose when that went away?
Well, I'm biased, I guess, because I think a lot. That was a major step towards connecting people with not only the records that are already available, but getting them to the right place to make a request. When we built it, I didn't realize how daunting it could be, because we had to like map out all the different agencies, all the different places, and then I was thinking, like, I've been doing this in government for, more than a decade. I don't want to say how long, but and I'm confused about which agency to go to, and that was always to me the first stepping stone to using machine learning to incentivize agencies to post more records online and to post FOIA logs, because those are the 2 data sets that it was pulling from. And so it's unfortunate if we're not building on that. It's one of those types of things that I said, I think one of the key areas in improving or making sure FOIA meets what its purpose is that we modernize it so that it's taking advantage of tools like that. I love the chatbot idea.
Yeah.
And while you continue the discussion, I'll let people go ahead and make their choice while we continue this discussion. Feel free to select your best one and write additional comments in there. Go ahead, folks.
Do we continue or do we give like a minute for voting?
Well, I don't know. I think we'll go ahead and for time's sake, we'll go ahead and let people vote if they want. It won't take but a minute,
Yeah.
But,
And also invite everyone if you have questions. Just let us know.
It's a good discussion period, a good conversation.
It'll be interesting to see what happens if I was reporting on this, I might sort of wonder which of some of the suggestions, a lot of great suggestions are sort of on this demand side. How do we encourage the ethos of wanting transparency, and how do we get people educated about it? And then there's some that are more oriented toward the supply side, if you will. How do you make the system better? So if you're obviously going to analyze this later, after this is done, be curious to see how that plays out. There was a phrase that was really well used in the RTI campaign in India, which really helped connect people to the need for this, and it was the right to know is the right to live. And I thought that was a very dramatic way of stating how important it is. And I'm not sure we've quite achieved that here, but a lot of these ideas might help with that.
Yeah. And if I can comment, when I first moved to the U.S., for me, like I was working with access to public records in Mexico, and when I came here, and we've had the system, you sign up, you send your request, and when I came here and I saw like all the requirements that there were in the U.S., I was like very impressed, because in Mexico, it was also the right to know is the right to everyone, and the access to information. When it is public for everyone, and it has been like a very interesting experience for me. I know I'm moderating, but I felt like sharing also my experience. I am very interested in here if you can share. Have you seen there's one suggestion is just like the journalistic stories or some events that occur that were able to wake up in people their interest in supporting and using more of access to public records. and like it has been like sometimes it's some type of investigations, and or some events specifically. Sometimes it's accidents or something like a. I'm blanking on the word. I'm very sorry. Like if it's like a weather related or something, and just like understanding where are the funds that we need in our community. Have you like some kind of experience that have like provoked that activation of people and having like more intentional in the access to public records?
Yeah, I could speak directly to that. Having worked at both FEMA and also at the United States Coast Guard, we had sort of a motto there in both places, and it was, people are requesting records because they just experienced the worst day of their lives, right? I can't count on all my fingers and toes how many requests I received from families or, like heads of households seeking records for grant applications that they needed because of, a hurricane wiped out their home. And before they're able to receive, a grant, backtrack a little bit, insurance information, before they can receive a grant, they have to show that they've exhausted their insurance, right? And FEMA keeps some of those records, at least the historic records. And so in this case, it's very literal if we take like homelessness as like, the capacity to be able to live, a normative life. If someone isn't able to access their flood insurance records, they can't get grants from FEMA to rebuild their homes. And suddenly, they are unable to, house their kids. They're unable to keep a job down. They're unable to do all of these things because their material conditions have just completely deteriorated, right? Another great example is when it comes to the United States Coast Guard. Most of our requests from the Coast Guard are directly related to like accidents on the water, and a lot of times it's the exact same situation. To get like a boating claim or even like an insurance claim for your health for having been a part of the accident, you need the records from the Coast Guard to corroborate what happened, right? If life and limb are on the line when it comes to FOIA requests, it's not like a very difficult reach out. It's actually like when people are aware of this and aware of these stories, it's very evident and it's very obvious.
I wonder if any of you, no?
No, I mean, one of the there are a lot of fun things about working in FOIA, but in the office I used to work for, we would handle, AG, DAG, Deputy Attorney General, their records, and like 90% of the requests that we're processing, maybe 70, we could anticipate the next day there's going to be a story about it. And it's always fun to see how it's been used in journalism. I really like the idea of articles that use public records being stamped, because I think that awareness is not only awesome, but it shows you the importance of those tools.
Yeah, I also think this is a really cool idea. Challenging when some stories require very various sources of information, but yeah. Toby, thinking of the international landscape, in your experience, like understanding the context where we are and like the description that you provided at the beginning of the session, do you see a possibility of this, how the international, like if one country if something is happening in one country, how can it influences around for the better and for worse? Like I remember when the Mexican law came out, like the people were traveling around the world sharing the experience so other countries could develop their FOIA laws. So I wonder if you see that happening, and if you and how is it influencing in the positive or negative side?
Well, it does happen to a degree. I mean, there's a very active Latin American association, and there's an international a group of information commissioners, which is moderately active. They have an annual meeting. They don't do a lot of programs. They don't have much money, so they're actual. They come out with statements, and they have good ideas, but they don't have any ways to really. They talk among themselves, let's say. So there's not a lot of activity behind it. There certainly is an exchange between activists, but there's a group called FOIAnet, which was very active in exchanging information just on a very simple listserv kind of basis. completely lost funding. I know because I'm on the board. We can't raise any money for it. And, but every once in a while, something will really pop up. It'll be interesting. Somebody will say, how do you deal with this kind of a question? And a lot of people will answer. So there is a community out there. In terms of different country activists helping each other, it does happen in some places. Some groups in Africa that do a good job of campaigning or helping people campaign. And there are quite a few countries in Africa that still don't have laws. Some of them are authoritarian, some of them are very small, some of them are just very poor. That's going to be a slow process. But there is a community of people internationally who tries to encourage passage and better implementation. But I would say, frankly, it's fairly weak, honestly.
I have a quick follow-up question to that. Where have you seen internationally, or have seen internationally, where the backsliding reverses? Are there examples of that you're aware of?
Not really, I guess. I mean, it would be nice to think. I mean, there was potential backsliding in Australia with some legislation, and they fought back against it. I mean, we're sort of in an interesting time now where we've had quite a bit of backsliding in the last 4 or 5 years. So whether it turns back when we have changes of government, you had in Mexico, you would have thought that it might not go that way, or it might go back now, but there's no sign of that. Sometimes things are hard to reverse once they've already happened. No, I can't think of a really great example. It was sort of like you're saying, like having new campaigns to improve the laws that were worsened, really. But that's another need, I think. It's definitely another need out there.
Yeah, and if I can just add, like, what I have seen is, and I really like in the trivia was this question about how many denials happened in 1960 something, and it was about 2 or 3 the response, and that's what happened in some countries. We see it, and Mexico started the same. In some countries, the letter is really good, like the law is still really good, but what happens over time is that implementation, and like even if it's the same regulation, the how officials behave and how they start limiting information becomes more and more challenging. I work on an investigation on with my Mexican colleagues on. We did a long investigation on. It's very dramatic, but on clandestine graves in the context of the violence in Mexico, and we requested public records to each state for over a year, and just gathering information. We released the investigation, and one of the findings was just like in the face of a humanitarian crisis, even though we have like at the federal regulation and it was applied at the state level, there was no, like, the states were not even understanding the same way what was the crisis. And after that, what happened, it was a journalistic investigation, and after that, the authorities creating the big dashboard on that data and started releasing it proactively. But it took like all these steps, and it was what we were doing in the investigation, especially my colleague that was in charge of and was managing all the requests. We will go back and ask for a clarification, and we will get like even less information than the first time that we got it. Like, and it's just like this, how the control of the information becomes subtle over time. I was thinking about that when I saw the trivia question. Yeah, I want to. Oh, I was going to open it to the public again, but
well, I'm afraid we're running out of time. But
so we're going to see who wins. Okay.
Everybody's waiting. They want to know who's the big winners. Is it Nate Jones? Wait. Is it Bobby? Is it Jason? Is it Alex? Well, let's see, shall we? All right. Everybody ready? If I can get this working. And ta-da! Aaron Coyle, number 1, with 6th graders required to learn about it. Number 2, Alex Waters. You three come up here, by the way. Alex Waters, by the way, he won the college FOI award given out by the Student Press Law Center and Breckner this year. Small claims court, like Ohio has, baby. And then Alex, you won 3rd too. So you get a T-shirt, sir. All right, congratulations. Good ideas. And they were all good ideas. You were all winners. We are all winners because we walk away with good ideas. And again, I will compile the entire list, anything else you submitted, and get it out to you. So this has been a great panel, good ideas. We want to keep the ideas flowing. We'll have a 30-minute break, but maybe 15, 20 minutes so you could get to the breakout sessions and we can get those going. 6 astounding breakout sessions this afternoon, followed by a reception to celebrate 4:15 to 6:15 out here on the breezeway. Complimentary beverages, appetizers, and good friends that you've now made. So thank you, and thanks to the panel for great work. And Sam and Serafina, thank you.